Morning, everyone. Hi, how's everyone doing? Good, good. I'm Sherry Phillips. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer of Forbes. Welcome. We do have a panelist who got stuck in traffic, so if you see someone darting down onto the chair here, Hal Brown was scheduled to be on the panel. He just got stuck in traffic, so we'll welcome him, hopefully, if he makes it through the campus. Pardon any interruptions there, but I'm here with an incredible panel today. We got to speak several times, so I feel like they're friends. And we're really here to talk about the good news and the future of media. So we're going to ask a few questions here of this panel, and I'm going to have them each introduce themselves, but we're really going to talk about the past, which they'll introduce their past, sorry. We'll then talk about the present of media, what's good, and then really the future of it, and what we're hopeful for, and how doing good in business is good for profits and good for the world, and kind of tie into some of the things that Mike Moe was talking about earlier on mission capitalism. So I'm going to turn it over to Christine Perez, who's the editor of D and CEO. Christine, can you give us a little bit on your past?
Sure. Am I officially answering question one, or am I just introducing myself?
You can introduce yourself. It's the woman who
I didn't want to ramble on for too long. My name is Christine Perez. I have the great joy of being the editor of DCEO magazine. It's based in Dallas. It's the business title of D Magazine Partners. And so we really tell the stories of the North Texas business community by writing about people who lead companies that are based here or operate here. So it's really fun. We do a lot of personal storytelling. We also have 3 news verticals: one general news, one commercial real estate, one healthcare, and we have a couple of special publications. So we do it all with an editorial team of 5, plus an art director. I'm very happy to see you here and happy to be here.
Great, Christine, thanks. Harry Hawks?
Good morning. My background in media started when I was 6 years old, helping my brother throw a paper route for the Times-Picayune in New Orleans, and continued on through the beginning of my career in finance. I worked for the Bank of Montreal in the early 80s, and wound up financing the acquisition of 20th Century Fox from Marvin Davis. If you think about the time frame, we had no clue what we were doing. There was a film library with Star Wars and MASH and things like that. We had, did not know what that was all about. DVDs didn't exist. Cable news or cable channels were just in the beginning. And the one thing that you might remember about that transaction, part of the assets acquired in that transaction were Fox Plaza, which became known as Nakatomi Plaza in the Die Hard movie. So, so you can impress your friends at your next cocktail party and tell them you know that. But fast forward a number of years, I wound up being one of the co-founders of Argyle Television in San Antonio. We acquired the broadcast division of the Hearst Corporation in New York, and that began a 20-year career in local television. And it shows here that I'm a partner at Interlock Partners, which is correct, which is, I don't know, one could say have either flunked retirement or I'm acing retirement. I think I'm acing retirement because one of the things we do is invest in digital media, ad tech, martech, and things like that, and I kind of know my way around. So, anyway, that's who I am. Pleasure to be here, and this will be fun.
Great. Thanks, Harry. Whit?
Yeah, good morning. I'm Whitney Shaw. I run American City Business Journals with about 450 talented journalists and another 800 folks in other part of our business. You would know us as, if you're from Dallas, you know us as the Dallas Business Journal. We're in 45 cities that literally go from Miami to Seattle and Boston to Honolulu. I will tell you, it is like trying to herd a lap full of kittens with that many markets. It seems like somebody is always doing well and somebody is always in trouble. So, it's great to be here.
Good. Thank you so much, Whitney. It sounds like parenting. All right, so since Hal is not here. He was our first question, but when he arrives, we'll put him on the spot. But first, I'm going to go over to Harry, because Harry has such an extensive background in finance, and as you hear, he's exploring ad tech and all the different new spaces in the journey of media here right now. And again, you started at LSU. So talk about how the formative years helped guide to venture and then kind of this exploration of different types of media.
The best thing I did at LSU was go to graduate school, which meant I graduated from multiple choice questions to actual projects. And, and that was, actually, I sort of came alive. It's like, oh, I'm actually learning something. This is good. So anyways, I got out of LSU, went into finance. I just, gave a little snippet of the Bank of Montreal experience, and so that was my first media transaction. But along the way, found that I really wasn't that fond of being an intermediary, or I wanted to be sort of in the action. And so I wound up leaving the Bank of Montreal and started my first company in the mid-'80s. So I'm now a 4-time entrepreneur. All 4 have been successful. But I've also been twice number 2 in the C-suite of 2 different New York Stock Exchange companies. And I was actually pretty good at that, but the most fun I ever had, and which has informed what we do at Interlock, was the startup world and being an entrepreneur, or even when we had a very large corporate platform, if you will, corporate venture or innovation. Because going back to when I got into media, you ran a television station on vacuum tubes. It was totally analog. If you wanted to edit programming, it was literally cut and splice tape. So the idea of non-linear editing, or more importantly, the idea of actually having a two-way conversation with a viewer or a user was totally foreign when I first got into the business. We were afraid of websites. Before we launched them, it's like the news director's like, well, this is going to cannibalize my business. No, it actually grew the business. We had to change everything we did and start thinking of how consumers actually consumed our content, and reinvent the business from stem to stern. Think of a two-way conversation. When we first tried, as it was called back in the day, user-generated content, it was the scary Wild West, because we had no idea what we were getting, and some of it was kind of outrageous. Although the things like the German Shepherd that could open the car door, that was kind of cool. And, Rhino Cam at the Kansas City Zoo, we watched the rhino be born, those kind of stuff were huge in the world of sort of user-generated content and so the beginnings of social media. So anyway, that's
amazing.
My life.
And now it's all the acronyms, right? It's UGC, and it's all the things. If I hear more acronyms that I have to Google, it's it's a lot for the brain to handle. But thank you, Christine. I'm going to turn it over to you now to talk about, as the editor of D and CEO. Love to hear how you arrived at this moment in this niche.
Okay, I'm happy to share. So I grew up in a tiny town in northern Michigan, and in 5th grade, we were given a homework assignment to go interview someone who had a career that you think you might want to have someday. And I inexplicably thought that I wanted to be a lawyer, so I interviewed a woman attorney, which kind of was a rarity back then. And what I learned from the process was that I didn't want to be a lawyer. I wanted to be a journalist. I wanted to go out and interview people and tell their stories. And so I always loved to write. I always loved to read. And then when I went to college, my mom broke the news to me that writing's a hobby and journalists don't make any money. And she was right about that. But so I majored in accounting. And she said, all the companies need women accountants. And so, I got the jacket with the big shoulder pads and everything. And so I just hated it. And my junior year of college, I quit school, tried to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And I got a job working at the Graduate School of Business at the University of Michigan. Go Blue. Woo. And so while I was there, I somehow sold a freelance story that I wrote to Cosmopolitan magazine. And I got $1,200. And this was 1980 something. And I thought, you can make money as a writer. I'm gonna do this. And so luckily at the time, I have an identical twin sister, and luckily she was working in Minneapolis, and she had a free apartment as working as a property manager. So I thought, I'll just go live with her and pursue my dream. And so I applied. I entered a classified ad job for an editorial assistant at a business magazine in Minneapolis. And I thought, oh, that's perfect. I kind of studied accounting, and I'm a published author now, so I can do this. And I never heard back, so I kept calling the editor, and one day he finally answered the phone, and he agreed to see me, and I got the job. I learned later that he has a hard time saying no to people. Anyway, one of the first things that I had to do was send letters to everyone who had applied for the job and tell them that the position had been filled. And I got to my resume in the stack of resumes, and it had a big red no on it. And so I realized that if I hadn't kept calling the editor, I never would have gotten the job. I never would have had the opportunity to learn from some amazing people, including the late, great David Carr of the New York, who went on to work at the New York Times. And so from there, I took some journalism classes at the University of Minnesota, and worked my way up at various business publications, including a 10-year run at the Dallas Business Journal. Greatly enhanced my career, learned a lot. Been with TCEO since 2010, and am living the dream.
Oh, that's amazing, Christine. All right, so it's a good transition for us to go over to Whitney here and really talk about, I mean, you have 45 publications, and so the landscape has changed so much, but you also grew up in this, family legacy. So tell us a little bit about what that's like, carrying on a family tradition and legacy, and then what it's like to be in all these diverse markets with, an incredibly diverse employee base.
Well, just by, quick background, I grew up in a family of journalists. My uncle was a White House correspondent. Another uncle won a Pulitzer Prize. My dad was a reporter, editor, became president of Dow Jones and the Wall Street Journal, decided when he turned 55 that he was going to go out on his own, so we bought American City Business Journals. So, and I will tell you, like Christine, when I was in college, I was going to be an attorney, and partly because I didn't want to be another journalist, and interestingly enough, it was my future father-in-law who was an attorney, and a very, very good attorney, who said, if your heart's not in it, don't follow it. And so then I became a sports writer, and covering high school football, and and I like to tell folks who work for the business journals that when I was in college, I wrote a weekly bowling column in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and where I was going to school, and I had committed to making it the best damn bowling column anywhere in America, and I would go around and pick up the score sheets and then write about it. Years later, it's, and we'll get into this, but but it's that local feet on the street, and the potential challenges and loss of that frankly keeps me up at night.
Yeah, all the opportunity that's out there, right?
Yeah, but it's we truly are at a crossroads, and I don't want to get too heavy too quick, but
yeah.
If local media dies, we are all in a world of hurt.
Well, Harry and I had this conversation yesterday. I'm going to go off script here for a second, and we were talking about trusted media. And Forbes has been around 105 years. I've been there almost 30 years of it. A lot has changed in the landscape of my career, certainly. We were definitely afraid of digital, and then, obviously made that pivot. But, Forbes is a trusted brand, but I think for the most part, it's, Harry and I were saying this yesterday, it's the local media that has the trust of the community. And so how do we, continue to foster and encourage journalists who should be growing up in that level, right? Should be in a newsroom, should have that camaraderie, and that how do we protect that and keep that and foster it in our communities, while also still having, opinions, hopefully, from Forbes and the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times, or, whatever you're reading these days. But I do believe that it does need to start at that local community base, because you have 45, I have 40 regional editions of Forbes, and it's different all over the globe, right? And so we need to foster that sense of opinion and community and camaraderie. So, but it's the trust, right, Harry?
Yes, I'd love to sort of tag team here, but with I'll exercise a little bit of privilege and also confess that I was also going to be a lawyer. I was in the JD MBA program at LSU, and I ran out of money after 2 years, so I went to work with my MBA. But if anybody needs an expert in Napoleonic Code, I'm your guy. So I got that nailed. But to your point, there is, just Google local news or local versus national, and look for, or Google trust in media, and the stuff that you get back about there is a good deal of trust in local media. What I did was local media, but at some level, everything's local. So if our television station in New Orleans, WDSU, Channel 6, NBC affiliate, during Hurricane Katrina, NBC, the network, camped out at our station to cover a national story in a local marketplace. And, over the years, whether we had a very small station in New Hampshire, WMUR, and, the WMUR would co-produce the New Hampshire primaries and the presidential debates with CNN. Or our television station in Des Moines, Iowa, KCCI, I still remember the call letters. It's been a long time. But that station was, incredibly involved and instrumental in the Iowa caucuses, another national story. So the other thing, by the way, that is interesting to point out, to talk about transformational change, these are legacy businesses. Now, spent a lot of time with Hearst. Hearst was founded in 1887. It's still around and doing really, really well. But in the television stations that we owned and managed, back to WDSU in New Orleans, WLWT in Cincinnati, WBL in Baltimore, every one of those went on the air in 1948. And so you think about how media has changed since 1948. You've reinvented yourself multiple times. The business model has changed multiple times. And the relationship with the national network, the national news, and the syndicators, has also evolved. Frankly, it's been kind of fun if you adapt and evolve to the changing environment and survive and thrive. That's fun. But to come back to the point that was just being made about the importance of local media, we're in violent agreement on that. That is absolutely, I think, of critical importance.
Yeah. Whitney, in terms of, I'm going to go off script here a little bit too, but in terms of, are you seeing a difference in terms of the landscape of the U.S. from, region to region in terms of how they're feeling, whether it's optimism, or are they hopeful, are they...
we with so many, operating in so many cities, I think we have a pretty unique perspective of the differences between cities, and right now and increasingly, I think we're becoming a country of cities that have it and cities that don't. You look at we're based in Charlotte. You look at a city like Charlotte or Dallas or Nashville. Mike was talking about the transformation of Miami. And you compare that, and not to pick on anybody, but you compare it to Buffalo, you compare it to Wichita, San Francisco, that truly have these incredible challenges. Companies are moving, the employment base is declining, what have you. And
Here he is, Hal Brown, guys. Welcome.
And so the challenge is going to be, how do these cities that are challenged remake themselves? Clearly they're great places to live. They're great, great places to raise a family. And the interesting point is, from a business perspective, we actually do better in some of those challenged markets, than we do in some of the high flyers.
Yeah. Hal, I don't want to put you on the spot because I know you're running in here, but we're talking a lot about the trust of, local media and, really the communities that all of us serve in our day-to-day businesses, but how that trust comes from local communities. So why don't you give a 2-second overview of your background, and I think it weaves in perfectly with how we're building trust from our local communities through media.
Thank you. My background, went to TCU actually to play football, not to go to college. And so I didn't really know what I wanted to do. My roommate at the time was Bob Lilly, and actually here from Dallas, his son, and he played football with me, and he had declared his major, and he said if I had to do it again, I'd go into advertising. And so not having a dream of being a publisher, I went into the advertising business, and so graduated with a degree at TCU at the time, was a journalism advertising degree, but the journalism element was not something that I aspired to do. It was just part of what they offered. So did the ad agency thing coming out of college. I'm not sure if you remember the show 30-something.
Yeah.
If you're old enough, it was a show that advertising agency executives that were in their 30s, and it was pretty cool. They all loved what they did. And I said, I want to do that. So got into the advertising business, worked for 2 agencies, and then went to work for a 3rd agency. That agency, was in the early 90s. The largest account was Michael's Arts and Crafts Stores. I'm not sure if you know that. They had 450 locations at that time, and so that was one of my clients, and it took that account over, and the recession hit, and 6 months after I get there, they go back in-house and pull their advertising business. So it wasn't good for me, and we had been designing ads for them. They had 2 publications that were national craft magazines, and we were putting ads in those publications, designing them for them. They just were not very good. And so with that relationship, we didn't want to lose it, so we punted and decided we're going to do something different. And so we went back and approached them about doing a magazine, creating a magazine for them. And we would create it. We would put their name on it. So instead of getting or paying for the ads, we'd give them 2 ads. The proposal was it would cost you nothing. We're going to put your name on it, and we're going to give you 2 ads in it in every issue. And the cost to you is 0. And all the crafts will be made from your stores. And so they couldn't say no to that, so they said yes. And that's how I got into publishing. It was not by a grand scheme, this plan. It's just opportunity, and I seized that opportunity. Ended up being a great thing. We ended up closing the ad agency because they had 450 locations, 6 to 8 registers per store. And we made money on the newsstand back then. You don't do that today. Very rarely do you. So we made a lot of money on that part of it. And of course, they were selling at the registers, but also we were selling subscriptions through the stores. And it ended up being a great revenue producer for us. And we ended up selling it back to them years later, continued to publish it. We did the same thing with Bass Pro Shops. Did a hunting and fishing magazine, partnered with them, licensed the name, cost them 0. They realized that they were building a product that we owned, but they were building it for us because they're the ones that had the distribution channels, not just stores, because back then they only had one, but they had the catalog, which was huge. So everybody that called in got a subscription offer made to them. So they ended up buying it back from us as well. We continued to publish both that and the other, and we ended up publishing other publications, Kitchen and Bath Magazine, a fashion magazine, Western Lifestyle Magazine. And during all that, we also started Fort Worth Magazine, which at the time wouldn't have been supportable by itself, just because Fort Worth wasn't what it is today. Now one of the largest, fastest growing cities in America. So we ended up starting Fort Worth Magazine, and I guess 6 years after that, I separated from my partner and bought him out of Fort Worth Magazine and just started concentrating on that. So that's how I ended up into this industry, by opportunity, just seizing opportunity. So I am a journalist by degree, but I'm an entrepreneur by desire. And so I'm more of an entrepreneur than I am a journalist. But local media, I think you were speaking yesterday about local media being much more trustworthy with regard to products that are nationally produced. So we take what we do very seriously. We are a lifestyle magazine, but we speak truth. There are other publications out there. I think Dallas Observer, Fort Worth Weekly are two that are publications that are not as, I'm not sure if anybody works there, hopefully not, that's in this room. But the truth is not something that is really important to them. Selling copies is. They don't necessarily require attributions when they get quotes. We do. So you can spread rumors. You can shape opinions when you're utilizing quotes from people that are anonymous, right? By making sure that you get quotes from everybody you publish, you eliminate that, or at least to a large degree, you eliminate that.
Thanks, Hal. All right, I'm going to switch gears a little bit and talk about kind of what we're seeing at the C-suite, what we're seeing in kind of the B2C, but also the B2B landscape. So I'm going to go to Christine, because you deal with a lot of CEOs. You're interviewing them, you're talking to them. This is your beat. So what are you hearing on the ground floor right now, and what's the buzz of the C-suite right now?
Well, first, I just want to say that trust is everything. I just want to agree with those comments. Then that's how you have longevity in this business as well. I always tell our editors, we don't build anyone up, we don't tear anyone down, we just tell the truth. That's all you can do. So as far as the C-suite, I think it's a very exciting time to be a CEO, and it's also a very challenging time to be a CEO. I would say that more than anything, CEOs today are searching for clarity, aren't we all? So they're trying to figure out the economy, they're trying to figure out how to win the war for talent, and they're really trying to figure out both the opportunities and the challenges that are presented by the rapid evolution of technology. And as far as newsworthy moments, one of the biggest changes that I've seen in my long journalism career is that CEOs today are becoming incredibly more open. Part of this is because employees are demanding it. They want authenticity from the people that they work for, and also it's due to social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Everybody's putting their lives online today, even CEOs, where they used to just sit in the corner office and focus on the business and avoid the media at all cost. So this has helped our magazine because we focus on personal profiles and storytelling. And we have a mission of connecting the C-suite. And when you write about some of the personal experiences of these high-level executives, that is a way to do that. It also helps in our battle for readers' time. We don't so much compete against other media. We compete against a reader's time, especially when we cater to C-suite executives. So we always have to give them things that they can't get anywhere else. And because of the trust that we've built up over the years, we have a good track record of getting CEOs to tell us things. And they're things that typically may not come up in some of their interviews. So we recently wrote about Mark Cuban, the owner of the Dallas Mavericks, and we were doing a story on a place called The Village, which if you're from here, you're familiar with it. And so we interviewed people who were there in the heyday in the 80s. And so Mark told us about that he lived there. He paid $125 in rent. He didn't have a bed or a dresser. He slept on the floor and piled up his clothes in the corner. And here's a quote from him: "It was a living hellhole and so much fun." And so then we were able to talk about his career and how it took off. But we started with that, really kind of maybe relatable story. And one of the most dramatic stories that we ever told was about a woman who owns a chain of salons and spas. Her name is Ashley Tran, and we were interviewing her during COVID and talking to her about how she's making it through. And she got really quiet and she said, "I've been through much worse." And she talked about that she and her family were Vietnamese refugees whose boat was attacked by pirates, and they were left for dead in the middle of the sea, in the boat, but with nothing in it. And after 3 days, a current pulled them to an uninhabited island, and they lived there for 6 months. And until they were discovered by some French fishermen who were just randomly happened upon them. And so, that really talked about how that formed the basis for how she leads as a CEO. And so when readers can learn the personal experiences in a CEO's life, it helps them understand why they approach their work the way they do, what drives them. And even, traditional hardcore newspapers are doing a lot more personal storytelling these days. One, because people want it, and two, because people are willing to share it. And it really comes down to, I think, what so many of us are searching for these days, and that's connection.
That's great, Christine. I'm going to weave that in because I think all of us hold a C title or have at some point, but really want to talk about purpose and purpose-driven capitalism and really build off what Mike was saying earlier. So, Harry, I'm going to turn it over to you and talk about, being in the C-suite. What does mission capitalism look like from the C-suite?
Well, first I'm going to say that personal story of that CEO, I'm never going to complain about anything. Wow, what a story. Well, let me come at it two ways.
Okay.
One sort of bottoms up, operational, and the other was top down from board and C-suite. Bottoms up, we found that being a good corporate citizen was good for business. So what does that mean? Being a good corporate citizen, we were local media. Every community we were in, we got involved. We volunteered. We did fundraisers if there was a tornado. We got a TV station, K-Hog in Fayetteville. We did everything you can possibly do at the University of Arkansas. Well, K-Hog, it's letters. Everything's red. But we found that being involved with the community, giving back to the community, made us a business that advertisers actually wanted to be associated with. It also was combined with the fact that we invested significantly in quality content, quality programming, and just to touch on content, everybody on this panel's got I think has the opportunity to be very proud of the content they produce, and you could look at the success of this brand new summit, and say, well, content is king. So summit's off to a great start. But for us, we were able to deliver quality programming, community service, and therefore go to our sales and marketing folks and say, okay, well, you've got a great reputation, quality content, and therefore you deserve premium pricing for our inventory. So we wound up being the most profitable company in our peer group, but the most respected. We won every award you can win for journalism and all kinds of community service awards. We demonstrated over and over again that being a good corporate citizen, having a purpose, was actually good for business. Now, and as we were successful, getting the best profit margins in our peer group, what can you do with that? Well, you can hire more people. You can invest in new product. You can invest in new initiatives, and we did exactly that. very delighted to say that what is now inside of the Hearst Corporation is Hearst Television. That division is the company we built. 2022 was record performance in the history of the company. And so the people, that's the company we built, and the people who are running it are the people we hired. And so it's continued, that sort of discipline. As it relates to C-suite and board, there was a point in time, Hearst Corporation has one shareholder, the family, or the family trust, I should say. When we started Argyle Television and bought Hearst Broadcasting, we were actually a public company, New York Stock Exchange listed, called Hearst Argyle Television. We found that being a good corporate citizen was great in our relationships with the FCC, because we operated at their pleasure, if you will. And it helped us on Wall Street. It helped us in dealing with, sort of every opportunity. And we became a destination employer. People wanted to work for us. They wanted to sell. They wanted to sell to us. And so it was good for business, bottoms up and top down.
Whitney, I'm going to turn it over to you to build off that, because I think a lot of what you've done and with your family legacy and the family business has been about, mission capitalism and how do you drive, what does that look like in the local communities and nationally?
Okay, well, I don't think you go into the news business unless you have a mission that first step when you take your first job. You become a reporter, you become an editor because you think you can contribute to the greater good. The tricky part is obviously, translating that into being a viable business. There, we can all think of great journalistic products, great news products that were a commercial failure. So, we know that by supporting our community, by writing about local businesses, by, if you will, putting them on a pedestal when they deserve to be put on a pedestal, and then knocking them off when they don't deserve to be there, that the community gets stronger. We went through an exercise several years ago. I felt like that our reporters, our editors, our salespeople had sort of lost their way a little bit, and so we went through an exercise trying to come up with a mission statement that was so simple and so brief that everybody, hopefully by the end of a day, would be able to repeat it. And it's 6 words. It's maybe grow your business, advance your career, simplify your life. That's the whole thing. We understand that when communities are strong, we do better. Everybody likes a success story, and they just feed on each other. When that happens, we sell more advertising, we sell more subscriptions. We don't give away anything for free. So, whether it's an event ticket, and we do about 1,200 events a year across ACBJ, whether it's our weekly print edition, the digital edition, we know that if we're a strong business, it enables us to do a better job and to give back more to the community.
That's great. Hal, I'm going to let you build on that because we talked a lot about all your pivots previously and then, what you've done for the community at Fort Worth. And really, it sounds like, hearing your point of view on it, the magazine is almost a subset of what you guys have done to build up the community with your philanthropy and all that you give back.
Yeah, our mission statement is shorter in years. And it's actually very similar to D Magazine's. It's celebrate Fort Worth and make it better. Really simple, right? And so we like positive journalism. When we do stories, we do them positive. We want to spread positivity to our readers. So there's a lot of news out there that's negative. That's not our job. We're a lifestyle magazine, both the business magazine and the city magazine, and our job, we feel like, is to celebrate, to do that with the people of the community of Fort Worth, and people love hearing about the city that they live in, right? And so Harry said it's good for business, and it is. We have people come up to us all the time and say, "Thank you so much for what you do." We sponsor events, charity events all the time. I had a publisher from across the country that's a member of City Regional Magazine Association. He called up and he said, "All right, I just saw 15 full-page ads for charities in your issue." It's like it was like October, right? That's when all the galas happen. And so they said, "How much do you sell them for? What kind of discount do you give the charities?" And I said, "We don't sell them. We don't do that. So we provide them free." So we sponsor the event, get a table at the event, and it's a $1,500 table, and we probably end up giving them $10,000 worth of advertising and promotion. And so that's a way to give back and celebrate Fort Worth and make it better. But it is good for business. It builds trust in your readers and confidence in your product. So it's really a win-win for us. The charities love it, and the people, and I will tell you this: the only issue is if I had a nickel for everybody that came up and said, "Hey, can I have lunch with you next week? Because I really want to talk to you about this charity opportunity," right? But outside of that, it really is a great partnership, and it builds. It's a capitalistic opportunity for us in that. We know that it returns to us financially because, frankly, without the financial aspect of it, you don't have anything to give, right? Unless you're making a profit. I had a coach one time tell me, a business coach, saying, when you run out of money, you close the doors and go home. And if you're not running a business anymore, you really can't give back.
Yeah. Well, I think it also goes back to trust, which is what we talked about, kind of at the start of this, is really building trust with those communities. And when you're giving back, you are, it's a partnership. It's a partnership of trust. All right, we've got 7 minutes left, and I'm going to do 2 questions, kind of lightning round, on kind of the future here. So I'm just going to go right to my left here and start with Whitney. But we're seeing a lot of new technology, a lot what's going to come to us at the future that's already out. Kind of the genie's already out of the bottle, as we know. What do you think is out there in terms of the business lens for technology?
Oh, wow.
I know it's a big one. Sorry.
We are at the precipice, I think, of the most dramatic change in our lives than in our professional lives as journalists and so forth that we've ever seen. Mm-hmm. It's exciting. It's scary as heck, but it is going to transform it and everything. What I worry about, particularly as a local journalist, is that so much of the technology will be forced upon us. Whether it's by the Microsofts, the Googles, you name it.
Yeah.
It's going to be. We're going to have to adapt to a situation that we don't really control.
Yeah. Christine, your thoughts on this?
Well,
particularly from the C-suite.
Yeah, from a C-suite lens, I think that the opportunities presented by technology seem to be centered around efficiency. It used to be that productivity was a hot word, now it's efficiency. So a lot of times you can discover that technology can actually make things less efficient. Isn't it a lot easier to just walk next door and talk to someone than, take the time to compose something? But that's what I would say is the biggest thing that I'm seeing from the C-suite. Efficiency.
Yeah.
And also protection against, cybersecurity is a huge threat. We've had some high-profile ransomware attacks recently in Dallas. It's just going to get worse, and that is a huge factor in the minds of CEOs here.
Yeah. Harry, what's your perspective on new technologies as it relates to VC, but also, your career as well? Are you excited about it? Are you?
Very excited. I think it's a great time to be alive. There's obviously, as the elder statesman in this group here and going through, the changes I've seen in my 40-something year career. All you smart people will figure out how old I am if I keep giving you more details. But, it's only been since last November that ChatGPT came out. And people are really struggling trying to figure out how to adapt and evolve, even though the broader topic of generative AI is considered potentially a real game changer, with some disruption along the way, some jobs being eliminated, more jobs being created. By the way, ChatGPT, some marketing person did not come up with that. Chat is for chatbot. It's a large language model. In GPT, I'll give you $5. Anybody knows what that means, but it's a generative pre-trained transformer. Like I said, no marketing person in their right mind came up with that. But it's really changing the way content is produced. By the way, there's been one casualty already. I don't know if you folks know the ed tech company called Chegg. They came out earlier this month in their quarterly earnings release saying they think they're going to get their lunch eaten until they figure it out. So 2 years ago, the stock traded for $110 a share, closed yesterday at $9. And so crazy. On the other hand, pick up all kinds of Wall Street research. Goldman Sachs came out, I guess about a week or two ago, so they think the broader subject of generative AI will have an immediate TAM of about 150 billion, but over the next 10 years could affect, in a positive way, world GDP by $7 trillion and change the U.S. GDP by at least 7%. So there's opportunity there. There's a premium on learning how to adapt and evolve, but opportunity.
Hal, what's your opinion from kind of the publisher lens here on the new tech?
I had my digital director last week email me a ChatGPT AI application and said, hey, you should try this. And I was writing my speech for Person of the Year. I told you this the other night, Harry, or last night. But we have a Person of the Year with our Fort Worth Inc. magazine. And Sonny Dykes, TCU head football coach, was our Person of the Year last week. So I was making a presentation to him at the Fort Worth Club on Thursday night. And when I was writing my speech, I said, Sonny Dykes winning national championship at TCU, write a story about it. And it corrected me in the story and said that he had not taken TCU to the national championship game. And I'm like, well, I know we didn't really play very well. We didn't really show up, but we did actually have a game. And so literally it corrected me incorrectly. I think it's a great tool. We're looking at it for, content is king, and putting out more content takes money. Digital is supposed to be free, right? So it's no paper, no printing, no postage, but you got to have people, and it takes people to create content. The content now that's you can produce with AI is just, there's no limit to it. So I think it's a great opportunity for us. We have to be careful. We got to make sure we still have journalists on the other side looking at it, reviewing it, making sure that what is coming out is correct. The upside, I think, is right now we're getting feeds in our inbox for things that we like, right? So if we like shopping if we're shopping for a car, we'll get feeds in our inbox for car shopping. I think with AI, you're going to have, I really believe this is possible, that you're going to have people putting into the machine automated opportunities for you to get actual stories written about things that you like, right? So it would automate and it would speak directly to you in your inbox, creating stories specifically for you. Not a story that's written for the public, but one that's taking all your characteristics and all your likes and putting that and writing a story and putting it into your inbox feed. So I think that's an incredible opportunity, but it has to be balanced with, with journalists behind it.
So we're running out of time here, but what I want to say on this is, again, I agree with you, Whitney. I think we are on the precipice of something really that's going to change everything, and I think we all know it's coming. what I want to say that's really exciting is, collectively, all of us here have made so many pivots in our career, seen so many technologies that have come at us that we were either excited about, scared about, all of the above. And I think it's how you embrace that pivot and how you keep doing it. And we're all going to fail at some, but we're going to win at a lot more, hopefully. So thank you all. Thank you for coming. Thank you to the panelists. And have a great day.